Know Your Place. Know Your Place is a website that allows visitors to explore Bristol's neighbourhoods through historic maps, images and linked information. Conceived and led by Pete Insole, the principal archaeologist in Bristol's planning department, the website was created in partnership with Bristol Museums, Galleries and Archives and the City Council's Geographic Information Systems, that's the GIS team, with funding from English Heritage. Launched in 2011, it continues to be updated and added to, with the latest iteration designed to be compatible with mobile devices. Know Your Place currently opens onto a section of the 2015 Ordnance Survey Map, located in central Bristol, with the left of the screen showing part of an historic map digitised from the very first Ordnance Survey of Bristol, surveyed at a scale of 1 to 2,500 between 1881 and 1883. If you're out and about in Bristol using the site on your tablet or phone, you can opt to have your location found via GPS, and the maps will adjust accordingly. Dragging the bar that's separating the two maps across the screen allows you to switch easily between the two. You can also select the spyglass function, a kind of transparent square window which can be moved around the screen to reveal the underlying map. On the right-hand side, you are able to select from the main and comparison maps, which, as well as Ordnance Survey editions from the 1880s, 1900s, 1910s and 1949, also include the Ashmead's earlier series of 19th century Bristol maps and the parish tithe maps from the 1840s. The earliest plan we've got on Know Your Place is John Rock's from 1750. Alongside these are two photographic aerial surveys from 1946 and 2012. For this slide, I have selected the 1874 Ashmead and the 2012 aerial survey. The majority of the maps have been scanned from originals held at Bristol Record Office, so you will see damage in some places, including tears and stains, and even some areas where people have tried to repair them. The scanned images have been georeferenced and overlain on modern Ordnance Survey digital master maps, but in many cases, the historic maps do not overlay exactly because of the way in which the original surveys were undertaken, although it's still remarkable just how accurate the 19th century cartographers were. You will also notice variations in colour because the maps have been digitally stitched together from individual sheets, as you can clearly see when you zoom right out. Having these maps available on Know Your Place has had a huge impact. Plans that used to be produced in the Record Office search room on an almost daily basis are now rarely moved from their strong room locations, lessening the risks of deterioration through handling. And although visitors to our search room have dropped as a result, with the website regularly receiving over 6,000 separate visits per month, we are able to demonstrate that our collections are being accessed much more than before. The website lets you search for a particular location using a recognised current address. It won't work if the address you have is historic and no longer exists. Know Your Place is not that clever yet. Say we want to explore how the area around Redcliffe Hill has changed over time. We enter the address into the search field and Know Your Place zooms in on the location. And it's much more impressive on the actual website. Now, onto the historic maps themselves. Other archives, including collections of photographs, films and audio recordings, are being spatially located as a series of layers. These are revealed as various coloured pins by selecting from the boxes in the Info Layers tab. For example, if we click on the Bristol Municipal Charities layer, a number of magenta-coloured lozenges appear. Clicking on a lozenge brings up a box with a thumbnail image and the link to its URL, allowing individual points to be linked to and shared. Clicking on the image itself brings up an enlarged version, and clicking on the arrow in the top right-hand corner brings up more detailed information relating to the photograph, including another link through to the archival catalogue accessible from the Record Office website. This online catalogue also includes a reciprocal link from the bottom, View on Map, which takes you back to the spatially located photograph on Know Your Place. Indeed, alongside conventionally structured archival catalogues and indexes, Know Your Place is proving such a useful finding aid that we are considering whether, where appropriate, we should be recording the longitude and latitude coordinates as a matter of course for those items that could be spatially located. The original photograph albums belonging to Bristol Municipal Charities, which make up this layer, contain 96 images, constituting a survey of their property. It was only following high-resolution digitisation that we were able to date the photographs accurately to April 1906, as one shows a newsstand poster referring to the San Francisco earthquake, which had hit on April the 18th that year. By aligning the 1910 Ordnance Survey base map with these images, and using the links between the Record Office catalogue and the spatially located entries in Know Your Place, we are able to build an informed picture very quickly of a neighbourhood at a particular time and compare it with its current topography. Know Your Place is incorporated as an historic information layer within Bristol City Council's larger geographic information system, which pinpoints the location of city assets and infrastructure, from bus stops to fibre optics, constituency boundaries to wildlife corridors. The site is being regularly used by planning consultants, architects and archaeologists, individuals and neighbourhood community groups, schools and colleges, encouraging a better understanding of Bristol's place-based heritage. The Bristol Municipal Charities photographs were the first from our collections to be added as a layer to Know Your Place, and we got very excited about the possibilities of adding other collections. In 2007, following the death of local postcard collector, or deltiologist, to give it its proper name, Roy Vaughan, his collection of almost 10,000 postcards of Bristol, mainly from the earlier 20th century, had been deposited at Bristol Record Office. By 2009, the postcards had been referenced, given brief titles and dates, scanned and published on our online catalogue. The catalogue was structured following the arrangement begun by Vaughan, who had grouped postcards mostly by geographical area, but sometimes by institution, such as schools, churches, hospitals, or factories. But the enormity of the collection catalogue made it unwieldy to navigate, and it could be very difficult to try and find what you were looking for. Know Your Place, however, presented a fantastic new platform. Spatially located, the collection would become more easily accessible, shareable, and linked to place. Put together on the map, it would create a kind of rudimentary early 20th century street view of Bristol. But more than this, we wanted to be able to add some detail about the images. From the outset, Know Your Place has encouraged contributions from members of the public through its community layer, whereby anyone can submit information, text, sound, or images about a particular location, and we sought to draw on this capability to crowdsource information by working with volunteers to research and locate the postcards. When the opportunity arose to collaborate with the University of Bristol as part of a larger Connected Communities project, aiming to enable people to explore, research and co-curate Bristol history and heritage using digital tools, we jumped at the chance. The Vaughan Postcard Project has joined the likes of the National Libraries Australia NLA Trove project to correct text translated from digitised newspapers, and Transcribe Bentham at UCL as a crowdsourced history project created by volunteer members of the public. Like these, our project's primary purpose, and that of the AHRC's Connected Communities programme, with its particular emphasis on digital humanities, has been to encourage the public to conduct research for themselves, rather than being merely consumers of it. It is probably fair to say that crowdsourcing and recruitment of community volunteers is not something that the university was especially experienced in. As the research assistant overseeing this project, it is definitely something I was not experienced in. Recruitment was therefore a little slow at first, relying upon social media, as well as posters and flyers distributed to libraries, museums, and other local history societies. But with targeted advertising, word of mouth, and some effective copy in the local newspaper, we gradually began to gather volunteers. Like other crowdsourcing initiatives, the only technical requirement demanded was that because we were populating a website with data, potential volunteers had to have basic computer literacy and access to the internet. In the event, we were able to accommodate a small number of technophobes by providing one-to-one assistance, often with the help of younger volunteers who spent time helping those concerned. Once recruited, volunteers were encouraged to attend an initial induction and training session. This proved highly important to their commitment or otherwise. The purpose of the meetings were to outline fully the project, to demonstrate the technical processes of adding content, and to allow for the selection of a suitable batch of postcards. By and large, we were able to restrict volunteers to researching one catalogued section of the postcards at a time, as opposed to cherry-picking from across the collection, which would have quickly become an administrative nightmare. Having assigned the cards, a zip file with the digital images and a spreadsheet of the relevant part of the catalogue was then forwarded to the volunteer. Early on, we agreed that there would be few pro or prescriptive requirements to the research volunteers were asked to conduct. We asked two simple questions. Is there an interesting story about Bristol in the image? And can you place that image at a specific point on the map? If these could be answered positively, there was our volunteers' research and the website's eventual content. With research complete, the volunteer uploaded their findings to the digital postcard image to the Vaughan layer of Know Your Place. The content was then moderated minimally for typos, wild historical inaccuracies, or wrong locations before being published on the site. Over 2 years, 53 volunteers have worked their way through the collection. Out of 9,700 potential postcards, over 3,500 were selected for uploading. Duplication or near duplication within the collection, unusable images, not geographically specific enough to be placed, or the simply dull, reduced the number considerably. 26 volunteers submitted fewer than 10, but 5 volunteers submitted more than 50 postcards each, with one volunteer, Andrew H., submitting over 1,750. The percentage figures are remarkably similar to other crowd-sourced projects, such as Transcribe Bentham or the NLA Trove newspapers. The former, for instance, showed that 2/3 of their volunteers worked on just one manuscript and then left the project. At the other end of the scale, Bentham had 26 volunteers out of a total of around 450, so about 5%, who carried out about 95% of the total work. Bentham also had one super-duper volunteer who submitted twice the number of transcribed lines to their next nearest rival. Our project has just the same character and situation in Andrew H. Where our project differs markedly, it seems, from these others, is that by and large we have not attracted the young professional high achievers that Bentham and the NLA recruited. Within our community, younger participants have either been undertaking work experience initiatives or those who attended a week-long volunteering workshop promoted as part of the Record Office's Explore Your Archive campaign. As to the demographic of our super volunteer group, they are almost exclusively retired or early retired. Of the 5 highlighted, only 1 is female. For internal auditing purposes, the volunteers' time per postcard was estimated at around 1 hour. We know some spent a great deal of time on their research, whereas others whizzed through their batches, so the 1 hour per postcard as an average may remain a reasonable guesstimate. The single most important observation on the stats, and of the project as a whole, is that the result far exceeded expectation. This can also be said of the Bentham project and the NLA. Wikipedia speaks for itself. On more Bristol-specific conclusions, there are a few clear points to be made. 1. Simply agreeing to a volunteer taking on some work via email contact is not enough. Most of those that did not attend any kind of introduction never did any work. All potential volunteers, therefore, need to be encouraged or made to attend the session. Equally importantly, the intro sessions produced 2 dropouts before they started, that is, potential volunteers honest enough to walk away having gone through the introductory session. 2, and following on from the previous point, we never chased volunteers who had not submitted material. The effect of this is impossible to tell. If we had chased, would the volunteer have sat down to do some work, emailed us an apology and withdrawn, or kept silent? I suspect the last option, in which case we saved ourselves time and unnecessary effort. If the first option, however, perhaps we would have had more submissions or completed the project faster. That said, the NLA concluded that a light touch approach and the consequent shift of responsibility for the published content to the volunteers is a positive process and one that contributes to the volunteers' commitment. 3. Volunteers who moved away from the city made clear decisions to leave the project, even though, theoretically, they could continue if they were happy to conduct internet-only research. To the project, this is an important point, and suggests that we generated a community of volunteers rather than merely a collection of volunteers. Indeed, the group of super volunteers tended to organise themselves to spend it researching together in the Record Office search room. More practically, though, the decision is also likely to relate to the lack of access to decent primary and secondary sources for research. By extension, this suggests we have quality in our findings. A further way to maintain quality, and one recognised by the NLA, is by giving the volunteer a specific topic to work with. We largely achieved this by maintaining the original cataloguing system. And even when the assigned postcard group was not a volunteer's first choice, the challenge this presented has been shown as another benefit to crowdsourcing projects, in that the volunteer considers the successful meeting of the challenge one of their unspoken rewards. This attitude underlines the principal reward the volunteers achieve. Within our project and those that I have cited, the altruistic feeling that you are creating gratis something of value for others. It is also clear our volunteers have been motivated by the personal knowledge they gather from taking part. It is, however, probably fair to say that we have not recognised or rewarded our volunteers as well as we might have done. In mitigation, we have all been learning about the process throughout the project. Clearly, the simplest analysis is quantitative. Qualitative analysis is far harder, impossible perhaps to assess. A brief conclusion must be the question, would we do it again? Would we run another crowdsourcing project? The answer must be yes. Certainly if the project is, at this technical level, fairly simple. But ultimately, all crowdsourcing projects are self-selecting in the recruitment and commitment of volunteers, and as the far more technically demanding Transcribe Bentham project has shown, and UCL's work does appear to nullify my only reservation that moderation of the crowdsourced content must be inversely proportional to the technical demands of the project, and that there will be a tipping point at which paid postdoctoral research assistant is more effective than volunteers. In reality, it looks as if the volunteers are out there, whatever it is one hopes to achieve, and however challenging. It's just a question of finding them. And just to finish with, this slide shows the whole layer of the 3,500 Vaughan postcard collection, so you can get a sense of the kind of coverage and the scale of our project. Thank you.